Welcome to the Pickleball Breakdown, how to be a right side king or queen with none other than the right side god himself, Scott Crandall. I'm so happy one of us can play the right on this podcast, Scott. Although I do love playing against someone on the right when they're in front of me, so I might contribute one or two little nuggets of wisdom. So Scott, lead us into the right side promised land. Talk to me about all things right side.
So, right side, there's kind of like the traditional right side, and now there's kind of like there's the new wave of right side. But traditionally, the right side player has been the setup person, right? This is the person you want just to make balls, be a very good dinker, be a good like resetter, and like be able to handle being attacked. But it's like, make balls, don't take high risk, and let the alpha left side player do that job. I remember when Scott Moore was one of the very first good players that agreed to play with me, and I learned a ton from him. And occasionally, if I was reaching in, getting a little too creative, he would never hesitate to remind me. He's like, "Hey, that's my job." And which was good. He's just like, establishing, making sure we stay in our lane and do our roles. But traditionally, that was kind of what the right side player, you make balls, set up your partner. That's kind of how it used to be. That's what a good right side player is. It has changed. It's changed quite a bit recently, and there's three main guys who have done that. I mean, Gabe Tardio, Hayden Patriquin, and I think Christian Alshon has established himself as a top tier 1 right side player. And they're not playing that traditional role. They aren't just dinking cross court and just making balls. They're super aggressive. They, all three of them have just phenomenal hands, which kind of helps you start whatever fight you want because you can finish it. But so it's changing, and I think there's still a place for both, but it is not the same, right? This is not the same conversation if we did this a year ago.
You mentioned one thing, not surprising your left side partner. Man, I am so bad when my right side partner surprises me. I like an aggressive right side player, but I have to know when they're going to pull that trigger.
It's interesting when you have your roles, and like the right side player is supposed to be, I don't want to say passive, but not the one taking risks, because if they do take the risk and it comes back, the left side, your partner could be surprised. Whereas if I know that my partner's role is to be aggressive, I should never be surprised if they pull the trigger and then now I'm in the middle of a firefight. It's kind of my job is to be ready. I know one of the people sent in a question about readiness, and as the right side player, I play with quite a few guys who like to just dink. Quite a few left side guys who just like to dink cross court for extended long rallies. And different people have different ways of being ready for all of that. But I've played in some matches with Rick Witzkin, for example, and when we play against Mircea and John Sperling, John and Rick will just consistently hit 50 dink rallies. And it's like Mircea and I are kind of just watching this happen, but I'm a very active partner while this is happening. My paddle is tracking the ball the whole time. When Rick has it, my paddle's tracking over here, so my forehand's open in the middle in case he goes down the line. And then once it's back to the person in front of me, my paddle has tracked it here. And so I am an active tracker of the ball while my partners are dinking. And I think that's that has worked for me as a right side player for staying ready. Right? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So it's like I'm always kind of ready and expecting it. But that was a question we got as to how do you track and stay ready?
So, talk to our listeners at home about cross court dinking. Why do you see these repeated cross court dinking patterns?
So it's a great question. There's certain disciplines where you'll see it and certain disciplines where you don't. I think when in my category in high level senior pro, there is a lot of dinking because everyone's hand speed and countering defense is very good, and it's probably better than our creative offensive skills. So it's like if you're going to make a bad decision and send offense, well, it's going to lose more than it wins. I think there's other categories where their offense is just as good, if not better, than their defense, and therefore you have more of a green light. And I think at the top of the men's game, it's like Ben and Colin, J-Dub, they like playing slow, long dink points, and their hands are just phenomenally fast. So if you do something ill-advised, you get punished. So when your hand speed is good enough to back it up, you can kind of force your opponent into a slow style. And if that's what you like to do, they have to play on your terms.
So if you are a right side player and you are trying to funnel the ball to your left side partner, where should you be dinking?
So I learned this in, I think the first time I played with John Sperling. First and last time. Midway through the tournament, he's like, Scott, I'm not seeing the ball. You need to dink down the line to get me more involved. And I was like, this was like my first year of playing senior pro. That was somewhat news to me. I'm like, sorry, I didn't realize my job was to get you the ball. But as soon as I dink down the line, what do they do with that ball? Most people will just take it and dink it back cross court. So it's a very important skill to have as a right side player. It's like, yes, your job is to make balls and set your partner up. It's also to keep your partner involved. You can direct traffic too. And so if you have I would say if I have a player who I trust and I want him to have the ball, then I can control that. I will dink down the line and then that person gets the ball. If I'm playing with a partner who maybe I don't want them to have the ball all the time, or maybe just in the moment they've been seeing a lot of balls and it's not going well and we want to change momentum, then I will direct traffic cross court to my right side opponent, and I will keep them in that pattern and try to keep them from getting out of it, and tell my partner, hey, I'm gonna go over here. I want you to look for the Erne because they're gonna try to get out of it. They can't dink with me, and blah blah blah. So you need to be able to do both. Like you need to be able to go cross court and beat your opponent cross court, but you also in different situations got to be able to put it up the line. That up the line dink is dangerous. You can get Ernie'd. It is just it's the shorter distance, so it's harder to get it on the ground. And so I would say it's not as simple as just, dink down the line. No, it has to be very, very good. So do not underestimate how difficult it is to do that.
As a left side player, I have 3 pet peeves from my right side player. Number 1 is when they sit in a cross court dinking pattern, forehand to forehand, right side to right side. I can't see a ball. I can't involve myself, and I'm vulnerable. So I love it when that right side player can mix up their dinks, especially throw in a dink down the line. Like you said, a good dink down the line, it gets me involved. It opens up the whole court for the left side player. So that's number 1. Number 2, when they speed up something I did not expect, I am not the best at cleaning that up. And number 3, when I'm dinking really well and I'm garnering and generating pop-ups for them to do something with it, and they're getting these high forehands and doing literally nothing with it, or a high backhand. Those are kind of my 3 right side pet peeves. So whenever I, as a female, primarily I play gender doubles on the left, when I find myself playing gender doubles on the right, I just think to myself, okay, don't do the 3 stupid things. You hate it when people do it to you.
I kind of want to add to that when you're playing your dinking cross court, and then you're doing well and your opponent wants to get out of it and they pop one up down the line to your partner, and your partner doesn't attack or like just, it'd be great if they would Erne it or if they would do something with it, when they just kind of let it bounce and back up, and it's like,
brutal.
That's really hard. Now, that could be you, because when your first thing was, I don't like it when my partner just goes forehand to forehand cross court the whole time.
My God,
it's like,
yeah.
Well, you need to track the ball and be ready to punish when they change the direction or go hunting for the ball, or so I need to adjust your perspective on that. And my first question would be, are we winning these? Because if we're winning these, then just take it.
Oh yeah, well obviously
just take it for the team.
I'll take it all day long. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, if we're winning it, I will take it all day long. Of course. Okay.
Good answer. There's definitely a skill to it, right? There's a cadence. It's like getting into a double Dutch jump rope. It's like it's a jab step, go. Or it's a jab step, go back behind and read the paddle. But yes, there's a lot to it, which is, to me, this is the fun part, because this is the chess part of pickleball. Long dink rallies are very strategic, and there's so much nuance to it. This is what I love. Now, I can flash back to a few matches where, yes, Rick and John have been in this dink battle, and I side lunge every time, and my left leg gets tired, and I just did 60 lunges and never saw the ball, and the point ended, and that's just it's like, okay, next point, we're doing the same thing. How many lunges is my left leg going to do in this match? But it's like, you just have to hang in there and do it. If James Ignatowicz can do 6,000 toe taps, I can do a few hundred lunges during a match.
Okay, so you talk about lunging. There is a shot on the right that I cannot stand, and no surprise, you gave me some of the best advice anyone's ever given me to master it, and I want to see if you replicate that advice here. So my least favorite shot on the right is at the kitchen, no surprise, when I get super pulled wide. So maybe I was a little bit in the middle of the court, someone hit a super aggressive dink, and I am now chasing that ball, and I can't ATP it. It's the ATP is not there. I'm just really out of position. Can you talk to me about that shot in case anyone else at home struggles with it?
Yeah, so this happens when, right, when we're dinking cross court and we kind of dink and we kind of pinch, like when you're dinking cross court, think about it. As soon as you hit it cross court, your partner has to cover the line, which means you have to cover the middle, which means there's a reason for your presence to be closer to the middle of the court. But that's also an opening for your opponent. If they can hit a very good cross court dink behind you, then you got to go chase. But whenever you're chasing and you get that ball behind you, you have one job, and that is you've been beaten. You're chasing the ball. You have a job: neutralize the point. Get your paddle behind the ball and try to hit a neutralizing, non-Erneable dink, whatever is the easiest one. Like, if I said, chase it down and try to hit it back cross court, sometimes that's too hard.
So what about mixed? Can I hit that neutralizing shot to the guy outside of Erne range? Is that better, Scott, than trying to get it all the way back cross court, where you're running the risk of it's a longer, harder shot, and if you float it, the guy's coming in with his forehand? So do you just basically give up and go to the guy and commit to hitting a neutralizing good dink?
Yes, to me that's the answer. Like, it is go chase it and then try to get the ball to bounce, and because you're chasing it, I think that takes cross court off the table.
Out, yeah.
So it's like, yes, you're just going to dink it down the line. This is the reason every guy sees this. Their eyes get huge. He'll probably jump the corner anyway if it looks like you're going to dink it down the line. And it's like, that's why you got to give it that,
Yeah.
5 feet from the side. But that's when you're chasing down the ball. It's like if you watch, I keep on bringing up Tardio, but I really enjoy the way he does this. When he's playing mixed and he's on the left and he's in the middle and someone dinks behind him, he is so good at chasing down that ball, getting the paddle behind it, and then just hitting a just nice spinny resetting dink that a girl cannot run forward. And Erne kind of goes to her side, but the guy's got to kind of come all the way over and hit his forehand. But it looks like he's been beaten because the ball's behind him, and he just never misses it.
Yeah.
He just resets it perfectly, and it's just like, that is a pattern that everyone should know. So I'm
agree.
just saying the same thing to you, but on your forehand side. It's like, chase that ball down, and then just reset it in front of you in an unearnable but safe spot.
I can do this on the left, no problem. But then you get on the right and you're a female playing mixed doubles and you see the guy in front of you, and there's 2 common mistakes. You panic and you light the guy up, which is not usually a smart play. Or 2, you put all this pressure on yourself to go all the way back across court. It's not necessary. It's like, Scott, the best advice you ever gave me with returns. You said, hey, just hit a good return. Like, don't get so preoccupied with the perfect place. If you're under pressure, give me a solid return, especially if you're switching. And that is how I feel now when I get pulled out on the right. Actually, I don't feel a lot of pressure because all I have to do is hit that neutralizing dink right in front of me, not earnable, and there's a lot of safety in that. A lot of safety. And the best piece of advice you gave me about this shot, other than go hit 1,000 of them and don't hit it so cross court, was, why are you hitting it so fast, Jill? That's what you asked me and my sister that day. You said, why are you guys dinking so fast right now? Can you just feel it on your paddle a little longer? And this is something I try and impart to all of my students, Scott, this notion of the more panic you feel, the slower I want you to swing, the slower of a shot I want you to produce. Do you like that advice still?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think, in so many cases when you're off the court, right? You're right. In this case, you're chasing the ball. You're off the court. You're playing defense. Mm-hmm. When you're playing defense, I say when you're out of position, the smartest shot you can play is a slow one, so that you can get yourself back in position. But if you're out of position and you go, this is why we call it a hero shot. When you're out of position, you go for a hero shot. If they're on it, you lose because the volley comes back. And in the women's final over the weekend, Anna Lee likes hitting hero shots when she's out of position, and she's very good at it. I think this was one of the first times that Anna Bright and Rachel punished her for it, because almost every hero shot they were ready and had a quick, just a fairly not easy, but like a makeable volley to a spot where it's like, well, now Anna Lee's off the court,
Off balance, yeah,
and like you can't recover. So when you're out of position, you're hitting a defensive shot normally. That's the wise thing to do. And if you want to do the wise thing, hit it slowly, give yourself time. And if it bounces, right, if it has to bounce, then you have time to get back in position. But if you hit it fast, it gets to them too quickly, you don't get to recover, and now there are openings that can be exposed.
There's always more time than we think. That's a huge lesson I try and impart as well. We have so much more time than we think on the court, especially if it's bounced, like you just said.
Yeah, plus I like doing it because it's kind of a boss move, It's like, oh, you hit a great shot, I'm way out here. I'm just going to hit this slow little thing, and I'm going to walk back. And now we're just neutral. And I like sending the message that that didn't panic me. What else you got?
One of my favorite spots to hit as a left side player is at the right side player's left foot. So when I feel that panic on the left and I'm pulled out, I'm always basically going to cut that ball right to the right side player's left foot. Scott, talk to me and everyone at home about the importance of the right side player's left foot.
Well, I mean, it is a pretty common target, right? If you say, what's the book on so and so, and they're a right side player, it's like, okay, well, usually a right-handed right side player typically prefers their forehand dink. They have figured that out. They've got nice moves on their forehand dink. The backhand, that inside out backhand dink, can be awkward for some. Some people just don't do it well, and they run around and hit forehands. And so it is a very common dink target in kitchen rallies. So it is a nice target to take advantage of. Now, if you want to be a solid right side player, you need to work this out. When I first started working with Rachel and Viv early in our season, that was the one thing that was one of Rachel's weaknesses, was her backhand dink, and I made her hit 100 reaching out backhand volley dinks, and it just took away that weakness. And so it just, once she makes that, then the next one she gets to her forehand, and she just like problem solved. She was just so solid, and it's like she just took away the one spot people want to get to.
There is almost nothing more debilitating to a left side player than when they go to that, their binky, their blanket, their warm, fuzzy, safe spot that's supposed to be the left foot of the right side player. And what does that right side player do? They reach in and flick it right into the left side player's face. And I hate that. I hate having a girl in front of me who plays the right and protects their left foot. So if you want to play the right better and you're listening at home, get really good at protecting that left foot. I always tell my students, let's try at all costs not to let that ball bounce, whether that's 1,000 dink volleys, which hopefully turn into successful speed ups as you get more proficient and confident in that dink volley. Protect that left foot at all costs, and you'll be a nightmare to any left side player in front of you.
Yeah, and I would also say that is one of the differences between this new generation of right side players, right? The guys that I mentioned, Gabe and Hayden and Christian, they all have a devastating reach in with their backhand in the middle of the court, and they flick.
They can go anywhere.
They can go anywhere, but they really are. They back it up. Like they're starting it on their terms, and they're just sitting there in the middle of the court finishing it off as well. Christian and Gabe are just so large. I think that's the other, besides their backhand flick, it's also that they're positioning themselves in a different way than the traditional right side player. The traditional right side player gives space to that aggressive alpha, so they're kind of closer to their sideline than they are to the middle. Well,
yes.
Not these three guys. Like these three guys
Yes.
are closer to the middle.
They're
now
touching.
they're not crowding. Like, it depends on where the ball is, but like they really take up space, and they kind of sort of pinch the court, and they don't leave you. It's like if I was playing against them and I see any of those three guys kind of with a foot from the center, now what am I doing? It's very difficult to dink the ball down the line. So it's like I don't really want to do that. And then if I am not perfect, they're going to kind of reach in and have this weird angle of a flick that is kind of hard to deal with.
It's almost like that right side player's innovativeness has been born from paddles getting so much faster and players getting more athletic, because now we've taken away the sidelines. I mean, in men's doubles, you're going to get Ernie'd. You're going to get birded. I mean, the court has shrunk in men's professional doubles. So when you're playing this truncated court with every ball funneling to the middle, it's no surprise that what's born of that is Gabe Tardio, is people who are reaching in and figuring out ways to be aggressive. And I think what these top tier right side men and women have done so well is make you feel like there is nowhere safe on the court. And that's when I work on my own game. I want people to feel like, well, shoot, I can't dink it to her backhand. I can't leave it high to her backhand. Middle's not safe. She's all over that. I can't lob her. And you know what? I can't even return to her. Her drops and drives are so good. Like, I want to create a place where nobody just reads a book on me and goes, that's the safe spot on her. And I think the right side guys are, and girls are adopting that as the court kind of truncates. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, for sure. That is what this new breed of right side player are. They're positioning themselves in a different way. So now the court is, the middle is more clogged. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can go, if you want to pull an angle to their sideline, go ahead, but they're all so fast. That's just going to be an ATP highlight. Yeah. And these guys they're long and quick. So the ATPs are pretty simple for them. So you really do have to hit, quality dinks. And in Gabe and Hayden's case, they're both extremely aggressive dinkers. They really they're not just short hopping and putting their dinks in play. They are doing something with each one of them, which they hit almost every dink they hit is so good that they go hunting afterwards, because it's like, yeah, that's good, and then it's like there's a good chance of a pop-up. I would say Christian is a little more, he's more safe, and he's just like, yes, he's making his dinks. I don't think they're not as high risk, but they're also not as high reward. But Christian is just doing it with his presence and his hand speed. So they're not all exactly running the same play, but I do think Gabe and Hayden are very similar in the threats that they create, the offense they can create with their dinking, as well as just their lightning hand speed and ridiculously flicky backhands, and forehand for that matter.
You've mentioned Gabe now, you've mentioned Hayden, you've mentioned Christian. Are those your top three male pros for listeners at home to watch when it comes to new school right side ideology?
Yeah, for sure. I think Dylan is there too. He's also, I think he might be the person who showed them, like, hey, you can get more out of this, and then they started getting more out of it. So
and took it to a next level.
In a way, it's like Dylan was one of the first guys, so I think he belongs in that category. It's like I just wish there were more lefties in this category. It's like I'd like to put Pablo there or Augie or something, but there's other things in their game that hasn't quite put them in this category yet, but it's close, and as a lefty, I would like to see it.
I feel like we have more than a few talented lefties. Why are they not better? Why are they not in the top 10 of mixed teams? Like, you especially see that flaw in mixed a little bit on the men's side. Lefties have more success. True or false? Lefties have more success in men's doubles than in mixed. And why don't we see more success from them, especially in mixed?
Yeah, so I think Pablo's probably the best lefty right now, and he does have more success in men's than he does in mixed. I think it's hard for lefty guys in mixed. You need it's very important to have the right partner who can do things, because the patterns are so different with guys staring at each other and girls staring at each other. I think it kind of comes down to there isn't a consistent go-to pattern against the top teams that's getting them an advantage. And so, they end up in a lot of close matches, and mixed is, I really think people don't appreciate how hard it is to win at mixed. It's not like, I think there's so many good teams, but
I'm curious your thoughts. What are the 3 or 4 most effective right side weapons available to right side players?
So I think when we talked about speed ups from the left side, I think speed ups from the right side. So I'm lefty, so my backhand speed up off the bounce, or if a righty is doing it off the bounce, I think It's a similar idea to what I spoke about on the left side. If you can take that first one and find it up the line and make it, and establish that you can take your speed up down the line, then, especially against a righty who's going to be in front of me, if I can then take that across their body, because if I've got a righty in front of me, their backhand is covering their line. And so it's like, I've hit one up the line, they have to honor that. And then if that next one goes middle or to their right hip, now they've got to either slide or kind of move their paddle over. And that combo is, that's a great combination of locations and speed ups. It's something a right-handed right side player can probably do. It's very doable, is because it's just their forehand and they just take it and flick one up the line and then take the next one down the middle and then see how that goes. Because you'll just get a lot of people sitting backhand and covering their line, hoping their partner is covering middle.
That makes a lot of sense to me. What about in the air, not bounce?
In the air. So as compared to, when we talked about this in the air from the left side, it's like, okay, you want to flick that ball down the line because you always want to find the right-hander's kind of right hip, forehand side. As on the right and as a lefty, so I've got this person who is sitting backhand, and now it's like if I flick it down their line, they're going to be on that. So I do kind of still want to flick it middle to their right hip or middle to get it down. And I think the mistake I kind of often make that I got to check myself on is I sometimes get it too much cross court. And if there's someone with a backhand that's ready there, that ball gets hit really hard. So a lot of my flicks to the middle, if there's just not enough on them, Oh my gosh, did they just get countered big time?
I really wanted to talk about this in our last episode, how to play the left side. This notion of don't speed up cross court. If you haven't heard that, you're definitely speeding up cross court too much. And so I have a caveat to the don't speed up cross court rule, which is you can do it. Just get it all the way across, all the way to the sideline. And one of my favorite shots to hit from the right as an attack. I'm right-handed, ball's floating to my forehand. I love taking that ball and hitting a really hard dink all the way across, which would be an ATP, but the opponent can't get there in time. It's so fast. Or the Lucy Kovalova, as I like to say, and I'm not as proficient in this as I am with the dink, but the side-armed slap so hard all the way across to the other right side player's right hip, as hard as you can. So those are two fun attacks if you do get a high ball from the right. Those are your backhand, unfortunately for you. But if you're right-handed,
no, that makes sense. It is that those will win. Like you have to take some pace off usually. If you go too hard cross court, it's like you risk missing. But if you take pace off, there is some deception to it, which is probably why it works. Then that usually when someone, if I'm on the right and I see the right side person has a high ball with their forehand, I am gonna jump and get so big in the middle that when you go behind me, I will not be able to adjust.
Exactly. And there's no deception on that ball. I mean, Lucy takes it back behind her and it is coming slapped 100 miles an hour. And where do you go? You go middle. So your whole dominant paddle side, right side, like you just said, that sideline is wide open.
Yeah. And I think I'd really, if we talk about kind of top three, players from the right.
Yes.
I think Lucy. I really like the way Lucy plays the right side.
I do
she's
too.
Just she's so solid, very solid dinker, very good hands. She's got
great
that
attacks.
Big backhand. She has offense. She has defense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like not that being kind of like her feisty and intenseness, like that's just kind of always fun to watch, the finger wagging and that stuff. So it's like she is one of my favorite right side females to watch.
For certain. Could not agree more. What about, I can't believe you haven't mentioned this, if you are a right side player and you get a volley dink, lob, baby, lob. You have the gift of the right side. You have something I don't have on the left. It's very hard to lob from the left. So talk to me about the right side offensive lob.
Yeah, I mean, and so what you're kind of describing is from the right side, if I can reach out and lob it, it's going to go over a right-hander's left shoulder. It's going to go over the backhand shoulder cross court. So there isn't going to be like an easy overhead. Now, there's some people who have developed some phenomenal backhand overheads that we've seen. Like recently, I watched Rihanna hit one. It might have been in that Newport tournament. I saw like Jessie has a really good one. I unfortunately have to see that one all the time. I think Mari Humberg hits a really good backhand overhead. Someone else just hit a really good one this weekend, but it's a great shot. As a lefty, I love it because people will forget and then they'll lob cross court, and I'm like, oh, thank you. But usually they forget.
So as a lefty, I have a question for you. When you go to lob with your forehand, what's kind of cool is you must be able to go either corner.
Yeah, it's like if I do it with my forehand, I can. I typically will push it over the shoulder of the right side player, and then if the left side player reads it, they can run back and get it. And against young pros, I have to be careful, but against senior pros, it works pretty well. And then there's other guys where it's like, yes, I can reach in with my left and kind of curl it back behind the left person.
Yeah, you should do that more.
You have to have full, like the deception has to be perfect, because that's dangerous if it's off. But if it's on, money. That's really good too.
Speaking of nightmare things for left side players, a lob over our backhands. Even though I know you just talked about girls with great one-handed flick backhand overheads. I do not fall in that category. Not even sure that's something I want to work on.
Yeah, as a left side player, you are not going to get a lot of backhand overhead opportunities. Yeah. When you're going to get it? That shot we discussed earlier when someone beats you out to the side, and the one I told you, well, you need to get back there and dink it. Well, you could lob that ball down the line over their backhand side. Like that's a desperation possibility.
I do that when I see someone earning. How often? So when I see someone, when I'm on the right and I see someone coming to Erne, how come I just never hit them? Like, I feel like I get hit a lot when I'm Ernieing. Is there a secret to like nailing someone as they try and Erne you? What am I missing? I lob them.
So I think in the same way that to see an Erne, to execute an Erne, you have to see it early and then know that I'm going to jump. I think it's the same. If you're trying to punish someone for jumping early on the Erne, like you have to kind of like this is like kind of me in rec play. I will fake that I'm going to dink down the line and set them up to go, and then just fire it at them.
So you just have to hit it fast. You don't have to think about hitting them. You just have to hit it fast.
You have to telegraph where you're going to tempt them, and then just flick it at where you know they're going to be.
I'm going to do that more. I've done that once. It was actually against Jessie. I didn't hit her, but I saw her coming and I just flicked it, and she got there and missed it because she was like, whoa, that came faster than I thought. I'm bringing that into play. The lob, I've got nailed. The only time I can lob is when someone's earning me. I should just pretend everyone's earning me all the time, and then I could finally lob.
So, I mean, but think about what we talked about on your left side skills, right? All the different options with your reaching out with your forehand in the middle. You want to dink to either sideline, push dink middle, or you have these speed up options. Well, the lob is also an option from that same spot. Anytime you're reaching forward for a volley dink, the lob is there. And I think you've said before that, well, whether you've said it or not, you don't lob very often when you play. Mm-mm. That is something you could add just because you are good in chaos and this creates chaos.
Yeah. No, I like lobbing from the right for sure. For sure. I'm not proficient at it on the left.
But I think the mirror image of me reaching in with my left hand and lobbing over the left side person in front of me, you could do the same thing from the left. You could reach in with your forehand and lob it over the right side person who's in front of you. Right? That's the same. That's just the mirror image, and it is absolutely there.
Oh my gosh, why have I never thought of that? And we did a whole episode on lobs. Don't listen to me, guys. Listen to Scott.
But yes, I do, as a right side player, lefty, I do enjoy reaching in and lobbing over the left side person. But I do recognize it's risky. But when it feels very good when you pull it off.
Okay, I have a question for you. I think this is a tough question. When Jaume Martinez-Vic was on my MLP team last year, he was playing with Kyle Yates, and it was like, who plays left, right? It was this big hoopla, who plays left? And Jaume and Kyle, I think, both prefer the left, and they can both also play right. But for whatever reason, that MLP, Kyle really wanted to play left, so Jaume played right, and they had this really long, grindy point. And I can't remember who won it, but Jaume looks at me after and goes like this. And makes the mime of my head is exploding because he had hit like 50 cross-court dinks. And that's how I start to feel. Like I totally empathized with him in that moment because I start to lose my mind when I'm playing the right and mix. And I'm just like, another cross-court dink to the girl, another cross-court dink to the girl, another cross-court dink to the girl. And I'm just like, I'm bored. I'm literally bored, Scott. Do you have any advice for people like me who are forced to play the right and can play the right and just want to jump off the metaphorical pickleball bridge when they're playing the right?
Yeah, you need to have some, like, it's not even patience. It's like, have some, like, respect for your own dinking game. Where, like, I enjoy torturing the person cross court from me. In every dink, anytime someone is dinking cross court from me, I want to torture them to death. I would love to win a war of attrition.
So who blinks first? Like how I feel when I play the left.
Who
like
blinks
who's
first?
Gonna blink first?
I want to play a point that is so long and so painful for you that after I win it and work you around, there will be scar tissue. And you're not going to want to continue with this strategy. You're going to get impatient. You're going to start making bad decisions. I want to create that. So,
well, I do feel that way on the left, but I feel like on the left, I'm getting presented with opportunities to do something with the ball. But on the right, that's like, it takes like 30% longer to get that opportunity.
Right. So you're just saying you have probably slightly less weapons when you're on the right.
Yes.
And your dink quality is not as...
It doesn't garner the pop-up, right? It doesn't like do as much.
Yeah. So you need to have more offensive dink options, and you need to develop some new kind of ways to get out of that, new speed ups. Like for you, I would cover more middle and then reach out and learn the misdirect forehand down the line.
By the way, this is only in mixed. This is only in mixed. Like in women's, I'm like, oh, there's opportunity everywhere. So maybe I'm just not lighting up the guy enough. I don't know. Or giving the guy too much credit in mixed.
It's possible. It's like if you aren't highly skilled at speed ups from your less preferred side, I don't think trying stuff out against the guy in front of you in a match is probably not the best way to go about it, right? So I would figure it out first and then learn it, which is why my first suggestion would be learn a misdirect to the sideline, right? Open your wrist and just kind of flick that thing there, because then even if he reads it, well, that's still just a dink. It's not like you're lighting him up.
No, that's actually really good advice. So for anyone listening who's like, what's the easiest attack for me to learn on the right? I think it's that. It's that you're sitting there in a cross court dink pattern. You do get a ball that you can volley, and you just do a little inside out shove. So Jaume and I played at the beginning of the year against Colin Johns and Brooke Buckner. We beat them, and that was something I did like 6 times against Colin. And he was standing in the middle of the court. It was just a clean winner. And it wasn't even a, quote, speed up. It was a misdirect. So that's great advice.
Yeah, and as you get reps doing that, then it just becomes part of your right side game. And then you start, right? We talked about this before, of like recognizing the ball as soon as they hit it and it's coming to you. And it's like, if they get a little too much of it, you're like, ooh, this one's got some air under it. I'm gonna be able to do my little move, right? This is the one I'm gonna kind of hit my little off forehand down the line, and especially especially if you see like an aggressive guy like Colin who's trying to stand in the middle and pinch the court off. It's like, well, then this is a good way of going behind him without like hitting, bounce, dink, telegraph down the line. He's gonna earn it.
Yeah,
reach out and misdirect.
A good rule of thumb, if you're trying to get better on the right, but you don't know when you should dink down the line, do it when you get the ball in the air. If you're playing someone who Ernie's, they'll be a little bit surprised. They won't have the time to Ernie. And if you're playing someone who doesn't Ernie, they'll be surprised, and maybe you'll catch them a little off-footed.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and it takes some practice, because it takes a lot of touch to hit a really good volley dink behind an aggressive guy, because there's a big punishment if you're off.
Talk to me about, as a right side player, how many balls you should let bounce versus taking in the air. And the reason I ask is I will play with some right side girls who are letting everything bounce, and it's like driving me insane. Is there a rule or a ratio people should be living by at home?
Not really. It depends on, it's like the smaller you are, the more you're going to have to let bounce, because, reaching forward, if your reach isn't there, like volleying at full reach is not a good idea. I do not recommend it. It's like, that's where kind of bad things happen. So yes, you do have to let some balls bounce, but if you're letting balls bounce that bounce past the kitchen line, well, that's a ball you could have taken out of the air. So I don't know that there's a percentage.
Well, I feel like I'm going to disagree with that, because I just taught someone at my camp at Tres Palapas, and she said, I said, why are you letting all of those bounce? Look where you are. You're backed up into transition. She went, well, I was told that I was small and I shouldn't reach. And I was like, well, yeah, you never want to be at full extension reaching off balance, of course, but you also don't want to let these opportunities pass. So I think you did just kind of create a rule, whether you realized it or not, Scott, which is this notion of, if they're bouncing past the kitchen line, yeah, you should have reached for that. So is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, honestly, I think if it lands on the kitchen line, that was a very volleyable ball. Provided it's kind of right to you, right? If it's landing on the kitchen but it's to the side, well, you couldn't really reach forward, right? The way to keep people from taking it out of the air is like hit it to their side, because then they've got less reach. But if it's anytime, like, I'm super critical anytime my partner lets a ball bounce and it lands past the kitchen, they get a mini eye roll from me.
So there's an episode we just did a few before this one. It's called How to Be a Good Partner. I encourage you to check that one out, Scott.
Yeah, hey, I also like, You have to first understand all the rules and master them before you can learn how to break them.
Yes, that's on one of our t-shirts. All right,
Yeah.
Scott, who are your top three favorite right side females? You talked to me about the men, talk to me about the women.
Okay. Vivian David has to go at the top of the list as she's such a
Agree.
great right side player. She's a great dinker. She is small but a fantastic volley dinker. She can be very consistent, but she also has quite a bit of offense.
Ton
I
of
think,
offense, poaching. She's
yeah.
such a great poacher.
Yeah, she's adding a lot of that stuff. It's like I think when she gets to the very elite teams, I think she should probably cut it back. But boy, it's really
agree.
nice in the first 4 rounds of a tournament. All of that offense works beautifully until she gets to the very top teams. So love watching the way she plays.
I've watched
the right
hours
side.
of Vivian David footage to try and glean insights into how to play the right in mixed.
And I would say next is I think Georgia is next. Georgia's she's been playing so much right side with J Dub. It's like her hand speed is elite. She's one of the only people she handles when guys are attacking and just she counters, it comes back harder. So it's like her hand speed, and I feel like her dinking has gotten so much better that she's not impatient. She's perfectly patient and capable of nope, we can dink for a few, and eventually she's getting really good at reaching out. She can kind of flick forehand, backhand. She's got a two-hander, a one-hander. She's starting to develop some variety with lobbing, and
I had the
so
pleasure. I had the pleasure of training at the unofficial Julie Johnson Pickleball Academy in South Florida this year, and got to play a little bit with the crew down there, JW and Gabe and Georgia, and dinking against her both in tournaments and in practice. The television doesn't do justice to how shallow those dinks are dropping. She must be used to getting, attacked or having her partner get attacked, with everyone having such amazing hands in South Florida, that the dinks that she's developed, her cross-court forehand slice, it is so shallow. You can't, I don't care if you're 6'3", it's really hard to reach in and attack it. And I just wish the television did the quality of dinks by pros more justice, both the speed of them and the depth. So I just wanted to flag that on Georgia.
Yeah, the way you can tell how good she is at dinking is to look at her ranking. That's how. I think in mixed doubles, I think she's top 3.
Wow.
And it's like you don't get to top 3 without being that good at dinking. You can't have a hole in your game and be that good. Because yes, J Dub is a wonderful partner, but J Dub, of all of the top alpha guys, comes over to his partner's side the least.
The least. Yeah.
Right?
The
She
least.
plays her side.
Yep.
And they are, it's like if you want to, the people who don't like, the guys coming over and taking all the balls that they do, J Dub doesn't do that, and he is successful. Those two are very successful. Georgia just plays her side, and she does it very well.
That's a great point. That's a great point. All right, third female.
I think we picked out Lucy earlier. I want to give
Yep.
Lucy that credit because it's like I think it's fun to. I like the way the skill set that she brings. Great cross court dinker. She's got that backhand counter in the middle. She's got offense. I think I like that she's a gamer. She doesn't quit. She fights really hard, and she has like the right amount of spice to the intensity of a match.
I also appreciate Lucy's game as much as you do, but I did not have her in my top 3. I had Georgia, like you said. I had Vivian, like you said. You might remember that I had Georgia as one of my favorite left side women in the last podcast. And I'm going to add for my third Anna Bright. And she was also one of my favorites on the left. So 2 out of 3 of my picks for favorite left side females, I'm also putting on the right. I guess these women are just crazy talented out the wazoo.
Yeah, I mean, you can't I'm not gonna argue with Anna Bright. It's like it's like, yeah, you could. I mean, we could put Anna Bright and Anna Lee at the top of any list. That takes the fun. It's too easy because they win everything. So
oh yeah, like, well no, I told you I won't count Anna Lee on these.
I chose a little bit by style.
Yes, for those of you wondering at home why I didn't choose Anna Lee, she's in her own stratosphere, so we're not putting her on the list.
Yeah, I think we both kind of agree, like that she is kind of in her own category, and she doesn't play like anyone else either. So it's hard to like. I wouldn't be able to like a lot of the concepts that we talk about. She doesn't do those things. Don't apply to her. Yeah.
One of the tough things about being an instructor is you'll have students say, "Well, what about Rachel Rohrbacher's two-handed backhand roll or Anna Bright's forehand roll?" And I remember you said to my sister when you were giving her one of the very first lessons you guys had together, like you said it in like the nicest possible way. Those are God-given talents available to 1 in a million. Would you like to model your game after those God-given talents, or would you like to start with something very repeatable? You know, you said it a little more eloquently like that, but the message was like, you know, you might have not been born with that genetic code. You got stuck with Jilly B's genetic code.
Yeah, no, like it's true. Some of these players just do stuff that it's like,
yeah, you wouldn't like, teach.
You can't copy that. You can't teach it. I can't recommend that you try it if you're trying to win. It's like if you're trying to have fun, hey, go ahead. Just do your worst. But if you're trying to win, it's going to be hard to win without you don't know how hard people work. It's like I think the case you're talking about with your sister, it's like these top girls are so good on their backhand side at reaching down to get and short hopping a ball at their feet that's like outside their left foot. And like Anna Bright will just reach down for that ball, and I kind of am taught, get your outside foot outside the ball and then hit the ball in front of you. And it's like, okay, that's a luxury, but sometimes she doesn't have that luxury and she can just reach down with 2 hands and hit that
and
ball
make it work. So yes, when you are an instructor and someone comes to you and says, "Give me Anna Lee's hand speed," what do you say to that?
Practice, practice, practice.
There you go. Scott, what else on the right side? What is on that list of yours that we have missed?
Like I would say the other thing that we haven't talked about that I think is kind of right side focused is something we've talked about in other contexts, which is I think we talked about it in the context of, hey, I'm trying to get to the next level. Well, if you're trying to get to the next level, then learn to get good at the right side so that you can be a partner to more people. And you could be a good partner. A lot of these skills we talked about, when you talk about the traditional right side skills, good dinker, makes balls, can defend their side with good counters and resets, right?
Yeah, we haven't talked about counters and resets for the right side player.
Right? So that is a skill every alpha guy wants, like both in a gender partner and a mixed partner. Right? So it's like the one fun thing about, it's like women need to be good on both sides because, okay, you want to be a great left side player, but in mixed, you're more than, much of the time you're going to be playing the right side. So you have to be balanced. So there's a lot of value in getting good at the right side skills. Like the only time you can say, I don't need to be good at the right side is when you're good enough to say, I'm only going to play the left. Right. And well, Ben is the only person who can say that. Or, it's like there's a list of 5 or 6 guys that are like, no one is ever going to be pushing them over to the right. Everyone else, you might want to work on your right side skills, because if you get a top player who is kind of deemed better than you, well,
Yep.
you want to be good over there on that right side. And usually, most people can dink. I think the thing that I find hardest, like for me, this is me on the left, a lefty on the left. The hardest thing for me on the left is defending. I get very confused with, okay, how do I cover middle? Should I be sitting backhand or forehand? And so when I'm on the left and someone attacks me, that is probably my least favorite part of being on the left. So if being on the right is new to you, one thing I would practice a lot is just dinking and having someone attack you.
Yep.
And figure out the timing and the spacing of, with this attack, is this a backhand and I'm sliding, or is this a forehand and I'm scorpioning or going this way? And get those reps in so that you can defend yourself. Like, you got to have great defense on the right.
Yep.
If you're trying to go to that next level.
I agree with that. I love playing with a pro girl named Christine Maddox. If you don't know her, she just won gold with Purple Jesus Max Manthau at the APP Newport Beach. She is 6'1", has hands of gold, and other than Tyra Black, I think is the hardest girl to attack, the most unattackable girl. Obviously, Anna Lee, we don't mention her. She's in an echelon of her own. But I love playing with Christine on my right, not just because she's 6'1" and can reach in and attack anything, but because it gives me freedom as a left side player, takes the pressure off of my dinking, gives my dinking freedom. Because if I leave something a little high and they want to attack Christine, have fun. That's exactly what she wants. That's exactly what we want. So as a right side player, the best thing you can do is what Scott just talked about. Be unattackable. How do you become unattackable? Go practice getting attacked. Practice scorpioning, practice sliding, practice your backhand counter, and most importantly, you guys, practice getting the ball down. The time for hitting through people is, I don't think it was ever here, but it's definitely not here with the paddle technology. Everyone's got hot paddles, okay? So get that ball down. Scott, any last final words or tips on how to help people get their counters down?
It's like, if you're having trouble getting your counters down, I think it's probably because you're trying to swing at the ball.
Correct.
And I would say, instead of swinging at it, meet it in front of you. If you meet it in front of you and think about your paddle angle, then don't think about having to hit the ball back hard. They're supplying the power. If you just hold your paddle and angle it down, it'll get down.
That is golden advice. And that's why when I warm up for all of my tournaments, the first thing I do before I put a paddle in my hand is I play a toss game. Kristen, my wife, tosses me a ball, and I try and meet it straight-armed because I want to catch it as early as I can. I want to get the feeling of swatting flies, of meeting the ball way out in front of me. I have never met a student I have given this drill to, Scott, who catches a ball like that. Because how do we naturally catch a ball? Right here. Right kind of in line with our head or just in front of our face. But what Scott and I want for you listening at home is the feeling of really meeting it as early as you can. Because I promise you won't actually meet it that early. Still haven't met a student who's just catching their counters too early. So Scott, talk to me real fast, because I think this is super important and I don't want to end this episode without addressing this. As a right side player, how do you know which balls to counter versus reset?
Yeah, I would say I am much better at countering than resetting. I don't do a whole lot of resetting. So it's like, to me, it's like I reset when I've been fooled. And other than that, I'm usually countering. I think the reason that I can counter maybe more than others is I'm always expecting, like, it's I get surprised, but it's like I don't think I am surprised as much as some other people. And I think I have my paddle ready position is higher than most people. So it's like my paddle's just up, and maybe instead of reset, my reset is probably just a non-swinging point the ball right back down. But I'm not usually the person 3 feet behind the line who is kind of catching it in here to just softly reset. I don't. That's not for me. I would say you will do that though if there are situations where it's like, ooh, a ball has been floated. You have time. You take a step back, and then now you're needing to absorb their pace. So if you know it's coming, and they have you beaten kind of positionally, or they've got the jump on you, then maybe the reset's the answer. But if you can hold the line and you're tracking what's going on,
Yeah.
I'm a
You'd
counterer.
rather swat that. You'd rather swat that fly down. Yeah. So that's kind of a
That doesn't
function
mean
of personal preference meets paddle position. Okay. I mean, I think a good rule of thumb, if you want if you just want to start with some type of rule of thumb, is if you're going to get caught on your hips, if the ball's coming with a downward trajectory and you're meeting it at your hips, a lot of people have trouble countering from that low of a position. So you can start by telling yourself, like, where am I meeting this ball, right? Not just a function of how early am I meeting it, but how high on my body am I meeting it? Is that fair?
Is 100. That's more than fair. That is really good, because I observe that in like watching, like I just watched that women's final like this morning, and when I watch it in at 75% speed so I can see all the patterns. I don't watch it at full speed.
Smart.
And it was amazing how well Anna Bright, like, if it's up here, her paddle is up. If it's down, if it was below the net, her paddle's down and she's resetting. Mm-hmm. And there weren't a bunch of, whereas with my, I think I would make the mistake of, I would probably push down and probably overhit that ball and it would come up and I wouldn't reset it. But she, like, when the ball was down, like, she's paddle down and it was just a standard reset. So that's excellent advice. If it's going to be below your waist, get your paddle down and reset that ball. Anything up, counter it.
Anything else, Scott, that comes to mind? I know we just created at least 1 million new right side kings and queens from this episode. Maybe myself included. Who knows? Never too late to teach this old cat a few new tricks.
No, it is just go out and practice the patterns.
Amazing. And if you listened to our last podcast, you know that Scott and I are going to be teaching clinics in Southern California, the Pickleball Breakdown clinics. If you have been dying to see us in person, guess what? We're dying to see you in person too. You can go to jillybeepickleball.com/camps and fill out the very simple form to learn more, and we'll add you to that list, and we will message you as we get dates, details, and pricing. Scott, are you excited? As excited as I am for that?
Yes, I am very excited. I can't wait to meet these people that follow, and I can't wait to be corrected by someone who says, "But in the podcast you said this, but now you're telling me this," and then I'm going to be like, "Ooh, what was the context?" But yes, I'm actually looking forward to that moment.
So, Scott, do we have a theme for our next episode? Tease us, please.
One thing I would like to talk about in the next episode is everything about the transition zone. I think this part of the court, I think, is kind of misunderstood, and like a lot of people like try to avoid it. But I think we need to embrace the transition zone and spend some more time there and get good there.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what's the transition zone? So I guess I'll learn a little bit more about that on the next pod. All right, you guys, thanks for listening. Don't miss us next week. We are out. Yeah, he's home now. Fed him dinner. Oh, look at that baby. What's his name? Nothing. I don't name my cats. Cool.
I don't. It's the big kitty. That's what her name is.
Kitty.
And there she goes.
How we did how to play the left, how to play the right. So maybe now the next one's how to play middle.
How to play who's got center field. Who's got center field is the next. Yeah, no, you're gonna have to edit the hell out of this part.